All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Kearns, and I'll be moderating tonight's meeting. And welcome to this community outreach meeting on January 20th, 2022 for Lucky 7 Cannabis, a proposed marijuana cultivator. Their facility is proposed to be located at 0 Timber Swamp Road in Westfield, Massachusetts, 01085. Today, we have with us Quinn Heath as a representative from Lucky 7 Cannabis. The meeting will open with a presentation on the proposed establishment, followed by an opportunity for community engagement and questions. We ask that you hold all questions until the end of the meeting, at which point I'll open the floor. And with that, I'll let Quinn take it away.
Thanks, Nathan. So for this meeting, this is the community outreach meeting. It's a required meeting for the state license application for Lucky 7 Cannabis Incorporated. Lucky 7 Cannabis is going to be a small cultivation program. It's going to be proposed, it's going to be located at 0 Timber Swamp Road in Westfield, Massachusetts. And the day-to-day operations of that will be run by AJ Lawton and Jeff Baxa, who Jeff might be joining us just in a little bit, but we'll carry on with the meeting and he can join in when he gets here. So as I said, this is going to be a small operation. It's anticipated to be a Tier 1 indoor cultivation license. So since it's a Tier 1 license, they'll be allowed to cultivate up to 5,000 square feet of canopy. So it's a pretty small operation. There are up to 11 cultivation tiers in the state, and at the maximum, you can cultivate 100,000 square feet. So this is just 5,000 square feet of canopy, and it's going to be indoors. So there's going to be air filters and all of that. So really the kind of potential impact of this specific establishment is going to be pretty low. So that covers the first of the 5 points that we need to cover at this meeting, the type of marijuana establishment. So second, we're going to go into information adequate to demonstrate that the location will be maintained securely. So as an indoor cultivator, Lucky 7 Cannabis is required to follow a lot of security standards, and those are all set forth in state regulations at 935 CMR 500.110 section 6. So there's a lot of different things that go into these security regulations and a lot of different rules that Lucky 7 is going to have to follow. And they're subject to inspection at the state level and they can be subject to penalties as well if they don't follow these. So some of the security rules that apply to Lucky 7 are security camera coverage. So Lucky 7 is going to have 24/7 coverage over any area that's processing marijuana, over the entry points and the exit points of their building. There's a lot of requirements for these video cameras. It needs to be relatively high quality footage. It needs to have time, date, and location stamps. And it needs to be positioned in a way that you can identify the people who are coming in and out on those video cameras. So any of the areas having marijuana or that have cash stored are going to have these video cameras, and that'll really add to the security of this facility. There's also going to be alarm systems. There's a couple main types of alarm systems that all of these establishments have to have. So there's going to be panic alarm buttons. These are like you would see at a bank, where you have kind of a button at the doors or entryways or at major points in the building where you can call for help. There's also going to be perimeter alarms on the doors and the windows. So if anybody tries to get in or out of the building, there's going to be a log of that. If people come in through the main entrance, they're going to have to come in with a key card and swipe in, and there's going to be logged entries. And if anybody tries to enter through illicit means, there's going to be these perimeter alarms. So kind of recordings of the video footage is going to be kept for 90 days. All of these alarm systems will keep logs of people who come in and out, and that also has to be regularly audited and kept up to date. As a cultivator, there's going to be a lot of what are called limited access areas. Those are areas defined by regulation where you have to have commercial grade locks. You have to keep those access point logs like I was talking about. And you have to really make sure that you're securing the perimeter of those limited access areas. Only people who work at this establishment are supposed to be here, since those are the people who are going to be working with the marijuana. As I said, this is a cultivation establishment, so you're not going to have too many consumers or people from the public coming in. Anyone who is a visitor has to be over the age of 21, and they have to be checked in into a visitor log. So really, there's no way in or out of this facility without being recorded, without your access being logged in some kind of way. All of these systems have to have a backup in place. So there's a failure notification where somebody in charge of the building will get a text notification or an email if it ever goes offline. And there's backup power requirements as well. So really, these are meant to be really secure facilities. Even though this is a smaller cultivation facility, all of the same security rules still apply. They're going to have all of these kind of features. So that covers the second of the 5 points that we need to cover tonight. Third is the steps taken by the marijuana establishment to prevent diversion to minors. Diversion to minors and diversion of product is an issue that Lucky 7 takes really seriously. As I said, they're a cultivator, so really there shouldn't be any product leaving this facility and going into the hands of individuals. These are really going to be business to business transactions. So if there's visitors coming in to see the facility, again, they're going to be checked, their ID is going to be checked, they're going to be logged in, and they're really going to be there for a purpose. There's really going to be not many chance for diversion of product to the public. Also, the state requires what's called seed to sale tracking. So any plant, any marijuana plant that's used in the adult recreational marijuana or medical marijuana systems has to be tracked from the moment it's kind of born and as it goes through the system. So really, if there is product being diverted, there should be mechanisms in place to audit and see what vendors are kind of causing these leaks or how this product is getting out and to fix those issues immediately. So our fourth point is the plan of Lucky 7 to positively impact the community. Every single cannabis business that's licensed in Massachusetts is required to have a positive impact plan. And that's an aspect of their state license plan that says how they're going to impact specifically people who have been negatively impacted disproportionately by the war on drugs. That's defined in a few different ways by the commission, but that includes people who have past cannabis drug convictions and their spouses and families. It also includes people from a list of 29 cities and towns in Massachusetts that the Cannabis Control Commission considers highly impacted by the war on drugs. So as part of this positive impact plan, Lucky 7 is going to be doing a couple of things. Lucky 7 is going to be working with individuals who have criminal histories that are eligible for expungement or sealing. That's a really important service that Massachusetts offers that lets you seal your criminal history so you can kind of avoid some of the impacts of employment discrimination and move on and kind of get started in your career, move ahead in your career, and get past some barriers that a criminal history can put in front of you. And then secondly, they're also planning to make a monetary donation to an organization that works closely with veterans who have been disproportionately impacted and directly impacted by the war on drugs. So finally, that brings us to the final point, which is information to demonstrate that Lucky 7 is not going to be a nuisance as that term is defined by law. So having a cannabis license doesn't give you any sort of license to break the law. There's plenty of common law in Massachusetts that says that you can't be a nuisance to your neighbors. And there's ways that you can go into court and you can bring an action against somebody if they are becoming a nuisance. That said, Lucky 7 is really dedicated to not being a nuisance. They're going to have a lot of efforts to control odor, a lot of air filter steps and odor mitigation wherever possible. Since this is an indoor cultivation establishment, there's a lot of possibilities for that and a lot of requirements actually for how these establishments mitigate odor. There's also going to work to mitigate traffic or parking concerns. This establishment is in a relatively low populated area of Westfield, so parking isn't a huge concern. As I said, it's also a tier 1 establishment. There's only 5,000 square feet of canopy. So Lucky 7 really isn't going to have a great number of employees that's going to have to deal with parking. There will be maybe a van that comes to do these business to business transactions, but not any sort of major transaction or deal or any sort of large amount of foot traffic into the business. So with that covers all of the information that we're required to cover at this community outreach meeting. So I'm going to turn it back over to Nathan. Thank you.
Thanks, Quinn. Now, it looks like we do not have any community questions coming from the audience, and so I think we can officially conclude tonight's community outreach meeting for Lucky 7 Cannabis. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Have a good night.